I'm going, God, you ruined everything, Ben.
No, I don't.
I
don't. I just whet people's appetite for it. And
We're live.
Oh.
It is Monday, October 18th, 2021, 5:04 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:04 p.m. Pacific Time. We have a very fancy guest in a little black dress and drinking out of, are you like drinking out of like a crystal glass goblet?
You said it was in lieu of fun. You didn't say it was in lieu of fancy.
Yeah, that is so true.
That's true. And you're the first person who's ever said that.
Yeah, Katie Fang once wore a ball gown on our show. Like that was kind of pretty, but you're like I would say like solidly. I mean, it was also like turquoise or purple or something, so it was like very, and had like a frou-frou like right here. So that being said, we're not allowed fun anymore, but we are allowed to have Brittan Heller to talk about virtual and augmented reality in a little black dress and a great necklace behind a mirror. We can't see her in. So
no,
she
she's
might
in
be
front
a
of a
vampire.
mirror.
She might be a vampire. House. I love it.
It's your new house.
Yeah,
wow.
It's her new house.
Where's your new house?
Don't
get details.
In the Bay Area, but it is a 1912 Victorian that's about 80% original. So
wow.
With the wood paneling, as you can see, and the original light fixtures and stained glass and 2 fireplaces, it's so much fun. And for Halloween, we're going to decorate it. And it's going to be great.
So I want to start by talking about your nails, Brittan.
Yes.
Okay, so we can't. Yes, so we can't. But this is the best. I think you said like Harvard in the front.
Harvard in the front.
Yes.
Heller, Harvard in the light, Heller in the dark. They glow in the dark like monster.
Yeah, her nails are glow in the dark. And she sent me this video of her drumming in the dark on like a desk. And I was like, that is the coolest manicure I've ever seen.
Wait, can you show that video?
No, I can't.
I know. I don't like it's gonna be, but I will try to find it. But it's pretty badass. You too can have this manicure by getting a French manicure and then putting a clear coat of glow in the dark nail polish over it. I'm gonna go do that after the show actually. But anyways, but seriously, Brittan, we've been friends for a long time. It is great to have you on finally, and talk to you about this stuff. I'm going to quickly introduce you and kind of like, we don't really do tons of introduction here, it's a very informal show. So also introductions are pretty informal.
Well,
also, we read the stage directions.
If Devin Nunes' lawyer needs information, it's Sally Hansen glow in the dark Sour Patch Kids co-branded nail polish.
I did.
There it
I
is.
needed that information actually too.
I think we all needed that. Yeah.
Yeah. Nunes' lawyer. DNL is great. So I'm gonna go Amazon that, and then also while I'm doing that, I'll briefly introduce you. But Brittan went to the Yale Law School,
which we try not to hold against her.
Which we try not to hold against her. Yeah.
Thank you. Everyone makes mistakes.
Hey, Brittan, right here. I know, but no, and you have worked for a long time in the areas around kind of cyber hate and hate speech. And you have, over the last couple of years, really started to specialize in kind of how those communities are growing in the video game context and in virtual reality and augmented reality. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. But start out with how you met Ben. Well, not met Ben, but how Ben had his first VR experience, I think at a gathering that you were there for, and he like sat on you.
Yes.
I want to stress by accident.
Okay.
It was not. It was an incident of I would say virtual reality neophytism.
But it happens to everybody, just so you know that.
Yeah. So just to be clear, Brittan and I have a mutual friend who suggested that we all get together. I think it was New Year's, right?
Yeah, it was New Year's Day during the pandemic because we were all feeling sad and lonely.
Right, for a virtual reality drink. And so we got together in the virtual reality equivalent of Zoom, which I have had never used before, which is a program called Spaces, in which one of the things that you can do is teleport around the room. So because you can't really walk, because you are confined to the physical space that you're in. So you teleport around the room, and I found myself one point teleporting to the exact spot on which Brittan was sitting, which in a normal universe would be something like sitting on her lap or something.
Like I was virtual Santa Claus.
Yes, exactly. It was super embarrassing.
It's funny to me that you felt embarrassed.
Well,
that's interesting to me. Like, because no. It's interesting because like there has been a transference that implies that there's a transference, that you identify with the avatar enough to feel embarrassed for what it does. And you feel like you have enough control over it to feel like you are responsible for what it does.
So I do not feel like I identify myself particularly strongly with my avatar, but I did feel like the other people in the room were their own avatars. And so, and also it just felt rude to there is a 3D space and there's this entity there with Brittan's face, and you have to treat it with the respect that it doesn't move quite like Brittan, but you do feel like you shouldn't do something that you would absolutely never do in real life. Mm-hmm. And so, I found it very embarrassing and very awkward. And it happened like 3 times that not that specific thing, but like that I tried to move somewhere that I didn't end up going where I thought I was going. Only one of them I ended up on top of somebody else. I found it really awkward.
I had the same experience where I was in VR chat and actually giving a talk on VR ethics in VR chat, and had to sort of slowly back into my seat because I couldn't get it to put me there directly. And whenever you're giving a talk in a VR environment, there is always the person in the back who is teleporting back and forth, and you just have to ignore them because they don't know the mechanics yet.
Because that's not distracting at all.
It's bizarre.
It's like the guy whose phone keeps going off. You just it's just. But is it this is super. So, I have mentioned this book to both of you, but I'm thinking of making the third part of the book that I'm working on Facebook and Airbnb about Niantic, which is this augmented reality space. And one of the reasons I'm picking it's famous for the company that created Pokemon Go and has basically mapped mapped the real world the most. Mm-hmm. In order to basically put an augmented reality on top of whatever that world is. And so I find this to be a fascinating juncture between meat space and digital space. And I'm kind of interested to hear, Ben's example is what's interesting to me about Ben's example is that he expects the norms of the physical world and what is happening visually for him in the digital world to coalesce. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think we give a lot of credit. I think that doesn't necessarily make sense if we don't have actual physical proprioception over our bodies, and we're expecting a laggy video card to be making up for that type of thing. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are, Brittan, the big picture of kind of all of this, how you're thinking about it.
There are norms starting over. There are no norms yet in virtual realities, so the way that we interact in in physical space tends to translate over. If you look on most of the major platforms, when they are trying to create safety mechanisms, they'll create a personal space bubble. And so normally that's about 18 inches. If they don't have a personal space bubble, which most of them didn't when they started. What happens when you put a bunch of people in a computer simulation and they want to try it out? Eventually people, try to push the envelope and go weird and sexual right away, right? So there's a journalist who described what she called the first recorded sexual assault in virtual reality, and it took I think it was 3.5 minutes approximately. She went into this archery game called Quiver, and found herself kind of mobbed by people who then started groping her and wouldn't stop. So she signed out of the game. And when she wrote about it, she said she didn't really know how to deal with the incident because it felt like being assaulted in real life. And she was kind of fascinated by this experience because that's kind of the special sauce and the Achilles heel rolled into one of virtual reality. There's there's this embodiment where when we put the headset on, we feel like the avatar is our own. And that's why Ben felt when he sat in my lap accidentally that he was impinging on my personal space. There's immersion where it feels like it's your actual world. And then there's presence, and that's when your psychological and physiological characteristics get transferred into the avatar. So if someone comes up to you and shoots you with a gun in VR, even if it's a cartoonish gun like from Roger Rabbit, your brain doesn't respond to the cartoon, it responds to the act of violence.
Yeah.
And even if it's kind of very avatar-ish, your brain actually fills in the gaps on lower resolution or pixelated things, so that actually
I do that all the time when Ben is glitching. I'm just like, it's just like glasses and like white hair and then like a dog shirt usually, and I'm just like, it's Ben. And that's like all I can see is.
But actually, that's all there is to me is sort of like white hair, glasses, and a dog shirt. And I'm actually very lightly pixelated in real life. So
we all look better that way. So Ben, have you ever heard of Julian Dibble's A Rape in Cyberspace? This is a pretty fun, like a foundational story. And Brittan, you like made a look. So I'm like curious if you're going to if you think that there's an issue with it or like.
No. I was when you said Julian Dibbles, I didn't remember the author, so that was my look. Like, oh god.
Oh, so I teach this, so like I remember but this is so Julian Dibble in 1993. I'm going to put this in the chat. Julian Dibble wrote this incredible piece for the Village Voice, which was about basically in a Lambda Mu, which was like an early stage multi role playing game, like multi online game, about basically like in like kind of like what before there were all of these things. There was kind of, and Twitch and all of the and I'm trying to remember half the games that John plays. What's the one that's really terrible for women? The one that's really bad.
Name one.
I know, like really. I just realized.
Grand Theft Auto.
No. Okay, that. But there is also anyways, whatever. I can't remember. Something starts with a D. I can't remember. Anyways, the point is that Second Life was kind of like it wasn't VR. I love that people are just like listing off things in the thing about like everyone. But there's basically there is this idea that Julian Dibble wrote this piece and it was about a person being raped through Second Life, through this like in this Lambda Mu in 1993, and he wrote about it, and he wrote about how the community decided to deal with this assault and to deal with the other nature of this assault being of a proxy being raped, and how this type of sexual assault kind of unpacked. And I bring this up because like literally I feel like people do not remember how early and how like you said, like as you said the thing about the space bubble, Brittan, this reminded me that like of course the minute you get rid of the space bubble, people do weird creepy sex shit. Yes. That's like all that they do. And this is like, but the second that you create the internet, people do weird creepy sex shit. Like And so this is going to, and like, you're going to create a metaverse. People are going to do weird, creepy sex shit. And so this is kind of, I mean, I'm also not trying to like yuck anyone's yum. If you're into weird, creepy sex shit, like, that's great. Like, God,
I'm into consensual,
yes,
creepy
exactly.
sex
Like,
shit.
God,
But I do think when
that's
somebody's
a whole another episode if we want to talk about
I'm not talking about what two consenting adults want to do together in VR is a different matter. I'm talking
Alaric said if you build it, they will.
They will. Oops. Oh my God.
Yeah. That's very good, Alaric.
Yeah, that was actually really good. Like,
we're talking here about, so like when I did the sextortion research, the super common theme was that the perps regarded themselves as just playing, and it as complete as virtual, and the victims regarded themselves as having been raped. And
an extreme on both sides. Like there was well, maybe not. Or
the truth is much closer to the victim perspective, honestly. I mean, this is a whole lot of people engaged in non-consenting forced sexual activity. But there is an element of truth on the perp side, and it is that they didn't touch anybody. They didn't, physically force anybody to do anything, right? It's and I think there is a quality of the gaming mentality that it's not completely different from, so if you look at the old studies of, manga and the sort of cultural attitudes, there are these incredibly sexually violent, comic books that people openly in Japan will read on the subway, and they have this attitude toward, well, it's a comic book, Jesus Christ, what the hell, and I think a lot of the sextortion perpetrators actually think about it like that. They don't think they're dealing with real people, and I do worry that. Of course, there is a huge difference between the manga stuff and the sextortionists, which is that they're dealing with real people. But I think they don't perceive themselves as dealing with real people. And I do worry that, VR creates this environment in which it is incredibly easy to do that. You have somebody who looks real, who 100 first-rate engineers are working on making as real as possible, who you don't experience as real, you experience as real like. And I worry about what that's going to do to the perception of what it's okay to do to somebody.
Yeah. Kind of related to this, but a little taking it to another application.
You can talk about whatever you want.
Awesome. I have a new piece coming out.
I was going to just link to your Reimagining Reality piece.
Oh, you should. Yeah.
This is one of Brittan's previous pieces on this that is like kind of like the original
OG piece. Yeah. There is a more lawyerly one called Watching Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Vanderbilt Law and Entertainment Journal of Technology.
I will find it. I found it.
But I have a piece coming out in the Stanford Journal of Trust and Safety in their first edition that I've co-authored with Avi Ben-Ziv, who is one of the pioneers in eye tracking technology. And we wrote about immersive advertising. And should we treat advertising in virtual reality differently than we treat it on social media and on the rest of the web and in gaming, sports, entertainment? And we came to the conclusion, maybe we should, because the subtitle of the piece is "In VR, Nobody Knows You're an Ad." the progression of advertising in virtual reality they are ads, kind of like Super Bowl ads, that you don't realize are advertisements. They're experiential. There's a handful in every VR AR format of Jurassic Park games. You can go to a VR.
I mean, this is very Snow Crash.
Yeah.
Like, this is very Neil Stephenson Snow Crash, like, kind of idea, which is just like
I was talking to some friends who were reading it for me, and I was like, is this new? This is in sci-fi already, right? And they're like, yes, these are ads that people go to because it's fun, and they don't realize that it's an ad for the Jurassic Park franchise. Because what better way to make people want to see the next movie, Jurassic Park Infinity Wars, or whatever it's going to be, than to go pet dinosaurs themselves. And there is the capability to put targeted ads in VR AR contexts. And because of those things I talked about before, presence, immersion, and basically it all feels like it's real, it has the possibility to be much, much more persuasive than anything we see on social media or other sort of outlets. So I kind of tried to explain it to people as saying it's not product placement, it's placement in the product, which is very different. Ben, I can't hear you. I cannot hear you.
How about now?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Weird. All right. So explain something to me. What do you imagine to be the process by which we will develop the sort of norms and expectations of behavior in VR? So I look at this and I say, okay, the chat function was a real breakthrough in life because it meant that every 13-year-old kid and every adult who had guidance for that person or predator who wanted to eat that person could be in direct contact irrespective of the desires and wishes of that child's parents. And there's a million good sides of that and sort of a third of a million awful sides of that. But it seems to me that it's at a different level when you're talking about a world in which, the first time we show up, we're going to accidentally sit in somebody's lap. And within 3 minutes, we're going to have a sexual assault, in your other example. And by the way, we don't really know how to think about whether it's, whether somebody who feels assaulted in that context is being completely reasonable or whether that person's just kind of ignoring the ambience of the gaming culture, right? And so my question is kind of what's the mechanism going to be? Is it going to be 100 ugly things happen and we're going to adjudicate them in very individualized way and develop? Is it going to be a terms of service thing where Spaces says, we're going to create 18 inches or maybe 18 feet of bubble around each person? How are we going to do it?
I think a couple of things here. One, the terms of service of major platforms that just intend for it to cover their VR ventures are sadly mistaken, because those are written for 2D flat social media. And basically your news feed is not the same thing as something that feels like someone walking up to you in your living room. I think that companies need to make the specifically tailored terms of service for AR, VR contexts where that take into account the neurology of this stuff. Second, I look at issues related to consent. I can show you one tangibly if you give me 15 seconds, but the question of what consent is going to look like in the metaverse is very interesting to me, because if it becomes a pervasive spatial computing platform that we cannot effectively opt out of without going into ARV, without removing ourselves from AR/VR context completely, then it will be a failure of the imagination. I saw people talking about how, like, why would you do VR, AR? What's the benefit of it? There are many other benefits. I'm on the board of the Virtual World Society, and we're looking at it for education, art, and humanitarian purposes. And there's more to say about that later, but I can show you what consent looks like in the hardware right now if you give me 10 seconds.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. She's gonna like get her cat or something. I just like feel like this is like going to be some metaphor. But sorry for choking.
No worries. I'm glad.
drinking apple cider and it really burns if you choke on it. Ooh. What is this?
This is Brittan in the Matrix.
This is Brittan in the Matrix. These, I'm part of the Snapchat creator program. So these, if I can get it to go right now. I look like Ray Charles, but like this is a touchpad and things, and I.
You don't look like Ray Charles. But
it should light up. Yeah, see it?
Yep.
Yeah.
That is what consent looks like. So here it lights up on the Facebook glasses. It lights up right there. That is how that's how you know that somebody's filming you or taking a picture.
But you only. What if you're like looking away when that happens?
That's it. That's the mechanism.
Implied consent.
Maybe I am Ray Charles.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, no, I'm Ray Charles. If I can't see that, like that is like actually what the metaphor is. I am the Ray Charles. You have the cool glasses. I have no glasses. Like I can't see anything.
Wait a minute. I'm with Genevieve Della Fera. I don't think this seems like robust enough consent. This seems like notification.
So this is the way that hardware providers are trying to show people that are trying to indicate that you are filming. And whoever said black electrical tape, that was my first thought. Black electrical tape, or just a little bit of like Sharpie marker.
Wait, can you explain, like, or just that you?
If there's a light right here that shows that you're filming or taking a picture.
Oh, that you just cover it up. Absolutely. Yes, of course. I mean, it's like the dumbest thing to hack ever created. Like that's.
But honestly, I mean, we all take pictures of each other all the time with our phones without a whole lot of anxiety about consent, right?
So maybe for me. If I'm holding this up like this, I'm probably taking a picture. But there isn't.
If you're holding it up like that, you're probably looking at the text message you just got from someone else.
No, actually, this is very interesting. The norms are now that like you look down like this if you're reading something. You're not usually looking like this unless you are. What am I doing right now?
You're filming me.
Like, am I? Or am I also, if I'm looking at the phone? No,
you're taking a selfie.
Exactly. So like you could either be taking a selfie or filming other people because the cameras are on co-opposite sides of the same 3D device, so that people look or pretend oftentimes like they're taking a selfie in order to film things that are happening around them. And like, I think that this is like, these are really subtle things that like, how the fuck would we have known that was going to be like a side effect of selfies and front facing cameras?
What I think is interesting is that what we're debating right now is like the gestational vocabulary, the physical vocabulary of how we interact with technology and how that mediates our interactions with each other. There is nothing like that exists within VR yet. There are different headsets, there are different form factors. It's different for augmented reality and virtual reality. It's going to be messy. It's going to be quite messy. But I am pretty excited by it. The thing that I also think needs to happen for number 3, I talked about consent. I talked about as number 2, but number 3, in the other work, I talk about how like when you're doing an AI ethics project, sort of just to kind of shortcut it for people, it's the compilation of data sets that create unanticipated results, and that's where a lot of the harm comes in, unforeseeable harm. I wrote a paper and had to actually invent a term because it didn't exist yet. In the Androids paper and the Harvard paper, I called it biometric psychography. And for me, that is one of the main harms that is potential in these immersive environments. And that is if the physiological reactions that make my headset work, like monitoring my pupil dilation with other handless controllers, monitoring the electrical pulses that are right here, or the flushing of my skin, so the moistness, or the heart rate. Those type of involuntary reactions can actually be monitored and give you feedback into the device. The eye tracking specifically helps it so that you don't get seasickness when you're in these things. But it also means that the companies have access to a bunch of information about you that you probably don't intend to convey. So the secondary uses of your physiological or biometric data can be things like who you're sexually attracted to.
And how is that measured?
Your involuntary pupil response. If you see something you really like or a person you think is super sexy, your pupils dilate. Yeah, and you don't have control over that.
Yeah, there's a bunch. Yeah, so eye movement studies, just to be clear, are among, like, from a psychological, neurological perspective, much more than fMRIs, much more than any obvious. It should be obvious. I shouldn't have to say this at episode 531, but like in case you just are new here, much better than self-reporting studies, which are garbage. And unless you're measuring how people self-report, which then is fine. But generally speaking, if you really want to know how people feel about things, eye movement studies are very involuntary. Like, they're involuntary movements. Yes, Ben, like that. Okay. Well, now are you mimicking me?
No, I'm just moving my eye. There's not that many ways I can move my eyes voluntarily, so rolling was just the one that people could most easily see. It was not a reflection of what I thought of what you were saying.
There was, but no, so involuntary things, like, we call them, in neurology, they're called parasympathetic responses. Mm-hmm. Like, they're responses that come literally from your hindbrain, from like your brainstem, that controls like the temperature of your body, right? Like when you get hot or when you get cold, like it's all of that. And so there is, and like prefrontal cortex, all of this is emotion and other types of responses, and they have feedback loops. It's not like it's obviously like independent. Obviously it's not, but there are ones that are especially parasympathetic. And one of them is things like what Brittan is talking about, like your eye, like your pupils dilating, or like your pulse accelerating, or your stomach flipping, or the feeling when people describe their blood going cold or something like that, is all just kind of like a parasympathetic response that actually happens milliseconds before your body is even aware that it's happening and senses it happening. So like, it's a response that goes into place in reaction to things. It's the fight or flight response. So all of those things, as Brittan kind of is pointing out, you have no actual control over, and you also have no control over sharing them, apparently, with these third parties that are tracking them.
Other things you can tell from that is whether or not somebody is likely to be telling the truth, and whether or not they're showing preclinical signs of diseases like Parkinson's, schizophrenia, and ADHD, because the way your automatic reactions to things in your pupils will lag. That's one of the first almost preclinical signs of these ailments. So people don't realize that when they're playing a car racing game, that may be what they're giving away. So the harm comes if those, which used to be accessible in a lab environment and now are potentially accessible in your VR and AR headsets, are combined with advertising databases.
Although
there are no laws right now preventing that from happening.
So that's the dark side of it, right?
That's the very dark side of it. And I think that there needs to be
Larky out. Let's make something happy about this.
Well, let's talk about what if we had a very communitarian attitude toward this, which is, hey, you're picking up a whole lot of potential data about lots of people's preclinical conditions. Mm-hmm. Not only do we want to put restrictions on your ability to monetize those by advertising to them. Mm-hmm. So, hey, Brittan, have you considered this, line of antipsychotics for your preclinical schizophrenia? Just in case.
For me, it's more like if I were to start getting ads in my VR headset about, hello.
Sorry, we invite users on to. So Genevieve is a co-host on the show. She just had a baby, so she's out on maternity leave. We're paying her abundantly for her maternity leave. It's totally fine.
Yeah. So
okay, but anyways, there's
what I was saying is that if somebody were to advertise to you, if the example in the paper is if you and I are playing a car racing game, and there's this red McLaren that goes by, and ooh, I like that car. I really like that car. And my heart rate starts to race a little bit. My pupils dilate. My skin gets a little more moist. And later on, that information is sold to advertisers. So I go to my Facebook feed and I start getting advertisements for why now is a great time to get an auto loan. I then get an email from Geico saying, thinking about a new car?
Red paint. You would love this color of red paint that's in the exact shade of I don't know, sorry. I'm just thinking of all of the ways you could use that.
Yeah, or there's even more potential for, I think, persuasion in it, where if they know who you have a crush on, if a salesperson has the physical characteristics of that person, you are probably more likely to respond positively to the ad. So that's the dark side. I think that there's a couple things we can do.
But hang on, I want to come back to the bright communitarian side of this.
Yes, I would love to move to that.
So if they have some ability to identify preclinical symptoms of actual disease, whether it's why should we not look at that as with some kind of duty to warn? Hey, if you're, I don't think Facebook should be diagnosing people with pre-schizophrenia, but you are talking about an exceptionally powerful access to clinical data that you could only otherwise get in a lab. And it seems to me if you're collecting that stuff on people and you're going to learn all kinds of things about them, the question of at what point you have a duty to let them know that, hey, we've figured out that you may be 18 months away from your first schizophrenic episode. Not that there's that much you can do about it, but presumably there's some at some point you're collecting enough information that it could be clinically significant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think most of the platforms are trying to stay away from giving any sort of medical advice. You could also potentially tell if somebody had a seizure from the way their hands are moving and the way that their voice responds. And I think that they've just shied away from anything related to warning people because of that. Some of the
but pause there. At what point is that going to become unsustainable? So now you're collecting all kinds of information. Are we
taking our hair down? Is it that point in the podcast?
Oh, I don't have enough hair to take down, I'm afraid.
I just oh, very nice, Brittan, yes.
So at some point you're collecting enough data that is in fact correlated with real world clinical outcomes. It seems to me you can say all you want. Well, we're not giving any medical advice, or we're not doing. But at some point, not giving information is itself a decision that we're going to judge very harshly.
I I think that it depends on, they have that data in the raw form. Do we want them to process it? Because what you're talking about is like a beneficial use, but do you want to give them that information in the first place? I would argue no. I don't want I don't want them having it.
So what about when they start collecting, heart palpitations that are highly correlated with near-term cardiac events? And we're going to say lots and lots of people should die of cardiac events because we don't want these people processing information that they're collecting. I find that I don't think we're gonna. I don't think that's where we're gonna go.
Right now, the kind of the legal regimes that govern AR/VR are state-based. There's
that's not sustainable.
Pretty much, it's not sustainable, and most of them
unless
are
it's
covered.
California.
Even so, because most of them are covered by the state-based provisions that define biometrics. If you look at the laws, biometrics are tied to protecting your identity. That is not the case with AR/VR headsets, where you have to have an account with Snapchat or Facebook or Vive or Sony to log in with a verifiable billing address. They know who you are. So the whole premise of the legal framework of protecting identity does not transfer over yet into protecting this information related to persuasion, which is why I made that term biometric psychography. Psychography is from advertising, and that's basically how they determine how a person's likes, dislikes, and commercial preferences can be determined. And if you combine that with your physiology, which is possible in AR and VR, like it hasn't been in any other technology outside of a lab before. I think that's where we get into the sci-fi land, but it's not sci-fi; it's here.
Yeah, I think that it's not sci-fi; it's here is a huge part of this. I feel the other thing, it's a very dramatic story. I think to have the conversation over and over and over and over and over again for the last 10 years of. It's not AI. It's not algorithms taking down your speech from this two-dimensional Facebook. It's not these type AI and algorithms are actually not as advanced as you think they are. Yet we are on this kind of amazing forefront of all of this kind of three-dimensional space building. And so it seems like there should be, but it is amazing how much puff and posturing can come in these new technologies without a very sophisticated back end. I mean, maybe that's not amazing. Maybe that is the history of technology and the history of developing things. But to make it work at scale, it requires some type of moment of, okay, we're going to put everything onto a fucking grid and we're going to lay down pipe and we're going to pipe out your poop from your indoor plumbing machines. No, I'm serious. Indoor plumbing is a great example of a type of technology that was revolutionary. It stopped the spread of disease, it stopped all of these things. And the stage in which that became not just architects planning houses around that, but that houses plugging into a system that was going to carry it away. Those are huge types of those are
public
huge
health.
Yeah, well, it's public health, but it's also, how do I put it? It's post-hoc solutionism. It's not that the people building in-house plumbing were thinking about where the plumbing was going. They're oh, the pond, over there, that'll be good long-term. No, that's not. And so we have to, it's the same thing that we're going through now, I feel in a lot of these things. But I do feel maybe we should be getting to the point where we're able to do a little bit of long-term planning about externalities, shit that we create, and not putting it all in one pond. I just think it's that doesn't take much foresight, I guess, to bend.
I'm gonna repeat it. If the metaverse is just a way to convey ads to us in a way we can't turn off in a pervasive environment, it is a failure of the imagination. And I don't see a lot of care yet going into the creation of this space and thinking about how it's actually going to be governed. And I feel I'm stuck in a time loop in 1995 and people are talking about how to govern this thing called the internet. It's the same damn conversations again and again and again.
And what did so here's like, what did we not think about then that looking back on it, we're like, well, clearly X principle was obvious that we're also missing for this?
With this, I think the issues expand beyond speech and touch on behavior in a much more identifiable way than they did with social media networks. Gaming is kind of the transitional bridge between the two. But I think in retrospect, it is kind of naive to feel like a speech act is not actually behavioral. Mm-hmm. And that is just very clear here. Also, that there's social science and neuroscience that can help us make better terms of service. Twitter's actually been really good at integrating the latest neuroscience into their governance. But I would love to see what we know about content moderation from gaming and from AR and VR put into code, terms of service, codes of conduct, industry best practices, name your soft log bullshit, but put into that for immersive ecosystems. One thing is, and this is really minor, but do you know what actually decreases harassment in video games? Pretty dang well, is if you make an avatar and you show people's eyes. Even if you show just like a cut of someone's eyes, next to their, like an avatar next to their feed. And if you think about video games, most of the time the ogres or the monsters have these little beady squinty eyes. You don't really make eye contact with them. But that alone decreases the incidence of harassment because it sort of rehumanizes.
Yeah, I think that's, I
will say that
that really hits home.
Mm-hmm. We also, you should come back on with, we're going to have to go to questions in 1 second, but
okay.
You should come back on with Rosanna Summers, who is also a YLS with me and does psychology, experimental jurisprudence, and is now at Michigan as a professor. But she did an incredible series of studies on the meaningfulness of consent mm-hmm. and about what it takes to make that happen. And you would be fascinated by her results, but also in the same lab that we were in, Josh Nobe, who's also been on the show, a psychologist at Yale, there was somebody who was doing a study to test this theory of big eyes make you mm-hmm. think that something is cute or human, and did it, and it actually is not they couldn't replicate the results. This is why I'm pro
interesting
null results, but they couldn't replicate the results, and I have to find out what happened with
it. Makes me wonder if after a certain point it actually reinforces the original harm, where it makes it not rehumanizing but dehumanizing when you get to the anime
an uncanny valley type of thing. Yeah, I've thought about. I proposed that as a reasoning for this. But anyways, we can talk about that in another time that you're going to come back on, obviously, because you're going to come back on. And now, Dr. Doom, I'm going to you. The radio is turned on.
Oh my. Okay.
Hi.
May I tell a story beforehand?
Sure, briefly. We have 8 to
okay,
15.
I'll be quick. In 1983, I worked on a project to develop a Rorschach test that was actually medically valid, with a set of pictures, evocative pictures, actually from the Jungian database that was on video disc, and correlating against people looking at taking MMPIs, with the idea if you got a big enough data set, you could do nonverbal psychological testing, just watching people as they choose the different pictures and as they're evoked. These ideas have been around for a long time, mm-hmm. and the recognition of this long time in so many ways. And I just wanted to, I went to the Microsoft's first privacy meeting, and everybody of the 6 people there recognized all of this, but there was just so much money to be made, and it was so far off that even though we knew that your frog would get boiled, that there was no escape. So when you talk about these things, I just want to go to the particular example of the these new Ray-Bans. look, it's obvious when this becomes penetrant and then there's enough market share, there is no escape for consent. Wherever you go, this stuff is going to be integrated, and you're not going to be able to say to somebody, as I have since 1997, do not take pictures of me.
No, you're gonna do that weird like makeup thing on your face that allows you to escape. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, I've seen these things to avoid that, but I mean, it's
No, you're going to do what I do. You're going to put a human face mask over your lizard face, and then no one will know what you actually look like.
Unless
well,
you
that's
post a
why I
real
put on
lizard face
my
Twitter.
Doom armor, and
Right.
fused it to my face, after the accident. So anyway, I
You're lovely.
yeah,
I
thank
know,
you.
he's great, right? We love Dr. Doom. Sorry.
So, I mean, these are serious issues, and you're kind of alluding to them. And I wondered if you could talk about a world in which, no matter what you do, you can't opt out.
We're already there, man. Sorry. I'm not gonna, and I don't mean to cut you off, Brittan, but like I literally like people
Well, I know
sorry,
that.
but I mean, like I just did Rose Eveleth, who has a great podcast, like just did a series with me in which she scanned in a bunch of photos that she took in Disney World in like 1994, like,
Yep.
and ran it through a photo processor, and all the people in the background, she was able to, they like immediately identified them with facial recognition, and there you go. That's like, I mean, like really, like we actually are there. That type of software is not widely available, but like, or it is, honestly, but like people aren't using it yet. It's not, as you said, there's not saturation, but go ahead, Brittan.
What I think could be helpful is, with acknowledgement of the fact that we may already be past that point of no return, there is no regulation of this space yet. Everybody is still spinning their wheels about social media. And so if we were to basically look at pre-existing law, like how does this impact HIPAA? Does the FTC regulation on truth in advertising apply to something that is a sponsored VR experience? The FTC is supposed to govern digital influencers and virtual humans. I really don't see it doing that, not effectively. And looking at if certain categories of information should be precluded from being used for advertising or persuasion or making consumer profiles in VR, AR. Right now, there's a divide between, if you're looking at the content moderation space in it, between people, between the platforms and the hardware providers. So if you look at the Ray-Ban stories by Facebook, if it's still on your headset, Ray-Ban is responsible. Luxottica is responsible for that information. If Facebook only kicks in its community standards when you hit the button and you download it to your Instagram, your Facebook, or your WhatsApp. So it's a whole new mechanism of kind of unregulated space as well.
GDF, the floor is yours.
Hello, I hope I'm not echoing. But very quickly, so I think my question has been somewhat answered by the conversation, but I would like to change it slightly. If there was one first step that you would like to see to help govern this space, what would be the first step? And I'm sure a long line of steps, but ideally, what would you like to see in terms of either private moderation by the companies on their terms of service or by regulation?
Making sure biometrics law covers this type of information.
So what would that mean?
What type of information? Like, sorry,
the type of information gathered by sensors in an immersive context, because now the way you tilt your head and the way you point are as physically identifying as your fingerprint. So think of that next time you're doing Staying Alive in
So
VR.
But what about
really bad dancing? Sorry.
But what about the same data as collected by Fitbit or non-immersive tech? I mean, the amount of information that Apple must be collecting through this watch that I wear every day is unbelievable.
But can the watch identify you in a crowd?
So,
I suspect by the way I swing my arms. I suspect by
no,
you know.
that's not true.
I don't think
the
it
watch
can.
Can't.
The watch can't. Like your gait could.
Yeah.
But it is new to have the way you tilt your head and point be physically identifying.
Especially because I do it like this, which no one else does, and it's unique to me. This
walk this way.
Exactly.
No, but like I really do kind of want to like. I think that this is kind of. I don't want to be fatalistic and be like toothpaste back and we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Which you can do, by the way.
Kind of, but in a limited capacity, and I've done it before, and it's not really as good, and there's lots of air bubbles anyway. But like generally speaking, like you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, and like the point is that like how do we walk back from these technologies once they're created, and we don't seem to be able to grok fully or like get onboarding for like their full capabilities and their full harms.
But that's the positive
studies perspective. Yeah,
that's the positive thing here. Where at least in AR VR, we are not past that moment yet.
Yeah, we're not.
They're still in their infancy, and you wanted a positive thing, and I was going to talk to you about the positive clinical applications of this and art projects and how I'm doing AR projects to in an application in Chicago with violence prevention as a violence prevention study, and I've done AR VR civil rights and human rights projects all around. But for me, that's the silver lining in this conversation.
I do think it's a great silver lining, and like we should. There was a lot of talk about banning facial recognition, and I just think that like. And I've always thought that like you're just not going to be able to ban people if like people can have the capacity to scan people's faces. You're never going to be able to ban it. The technology is going to exist. Like you can ban how police use it and the government uses it, but you're not going to be able to ban how private entities use it. At least not with like certain huge changes to the First Amendment and other things and Fourth Amendment. But like. Yeah, I think that you're right. I think that there are things that we can kind of pick up from the norms that have been created in these prior communities. You can read it in your paper that I've posted a few times, but I'm going to post again. And also in Julian Dibble's paper, which is like, this is one of the few pieces that I always assign to my students in my internet law class. And I just think it's like there have been harms in the internet for as long as the internet has existed, but that is the very reason why we should be better dealing with the harms that are coming with the metaverse and all of Augmented. Like have they trademarked that metaverse? Is that a Facebook thing?
It might be.
Okay,
but
I like it. Are you gonna put your glasses back on, Rachel?
I'm gonna put my glasses back on for the last minute, and there is a blue screen of death in the AR overlay, which tells you, we're not.
When you have those, can you see us like through them?
Yeah, okay. I can totally see you through them, and I need to reboot my.
Reboot your glasses.
Reboot.
See, I never have to reboot my glasses.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben Franklin. That's great. Like, what the fuck? Like, honestly, like, Ben's like, here I am wearing like
my monocle,
my fashionable 17th century. Like,
look, one of us is looking over her glasses, and it ain't me. Just saying.
Sometimes there's no improving on existing technology. I think that's a
good note to end on. And if I do come back, yes, I know everyone's like, my law practice, I always introduce it as I am the Black Mirror. I am the Black Mirror. So if I get invited back, I will talk about the humanitarian uses of this stuff. And I think that could be more fun, and we'll do a happy one, and you'll all feel really good about this stuff.
And I have the best AR workout, VR workout regime. There's a lot of good uses for this.
There are a lot of good uses.
great fun.
Yeah, and I presented to the FTC on this stuff, so you can poke them a little bit. So it wasn't like that Saturday Night Live cold open when they were asking, like, how do I use this meme? It's pronounced meme.
Excellent.
Mimi, get back. Nana, Mimi, get back away from the meme. Like, yeah. Anyway.
All right. We are going to wrap. We will be back tomorrow. Brittan Heller, you're a great American. It's great to see you. It's great to see you in Flash. 2, if only 2 dimensions. And we will be back tomorrow. Do we know who our guest is going to be tomorrow? No, we do not.
No, but we do have a great lineup for the rest of the week. We have Nicholson Price, who famously beat the president of Estonia in a bow tying match live on the show. He's going to be back to talk about medical ethics on Wednesday. And we have Will Codrington, a favorite of the show, who is going to be talking about his new book about the People's Constitution on Thursday. And
we have Cheese Night on Friday.
Cheese Night on Friday.
You want to join for Cheese Night?
Yeah.
We always
you should
eat
totally
cheese on the show
night.
And just shoot the shit.
Let's do it. You just have to bring cheese.
I'm there.
We do it every cheese night, every Friday.
I have so much cheese in the fridge. It's amazing. I'm going to bring a green hatch chili cheddar.
All right.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Sorry, all that'll start, the part that we don't know who the guest is, will start 22 hours and 55 minutes from now. And until then, Kate?
We don't have fun anymore.
Are we wearing Halloween costumes?
We're always up for Halloween costumes.
You should see my costume from last year. I just a giant paper bag puppet of the Lisa Page. It's a long story.
It's a very long story.
I haven't decided if I'm going to be
Friday.
Jan or Marcia Brady.
Brittan. We'll tell you on Friday, Brittan. Love you.
See you soon. Wait, you got to do the sign off, KK.
I just did it.
We don't have fun anymore, but
I just did that, but we're giant paper bag puppets that don't have like fun anymore. What?